we've all lived together for about a month.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in if your perspectives on everyone else has changed over the course of this experience.
Well, I think with you, not so much, because we've known each other for like 3 years now, and we also have a business together.
Yeah, we talk a lot.
Yeah.
So
It's just like you're a lot meaner.
I'm so nice. Don't
So many
come on
dad
my
jokes.
podcast. And no, I'm just kidding.
Made me cry every day, but you know. That's
You were gonna cry every day anyway. So Tina, Lulu, Zach,
Hello.
welcome back to the Ken's Nearest Neighbors podcast. I'm excited to have you both on. It's been a while. I mean, not that long since I had you on, Zach, but it's been a while since I had Tina on. So I'm excited to be able to fill others in on what's going on in your life, what's going on in your careers. Let's start. You guys both essentially rage quit San Francisco, and now you're both crawling back. What's the story behind that?
You want to go first, Tina?
I feel like yours is far more fascinating.
Okay, I'll start. I mean, so I was in SF for like most of 2022 until like October. And like, I just had like a problem with like people like on the street were just being really dirty, right? And they were just like not being nice to my doorsteps, right? And leaving really gross presents on my doorstep like many, many times. And then I'd have to clean it up. And I was like, is this really a city right now? I was like, how is this level of dysfunction like allowed, right? And it was just, it got me really, really frustrated. So I was like, I'm done. Like,
So Zach is sugarcoating a little bit.
Yes.
Essentially, homeless people were taking dumps on.
yeah, for sure. That's the better way. That's the more like that's the more visceral way to say it, Ken, for sure.
Yeah, it's a podcast for on YouTube. It's you
Yep.
got
you gotta really go for it for
with
sure.
all the facts. And so obviously that was enough to make you wander around, kind of explore other places.
Yeah, dude.
And it sounds like it sort of prompted a really cool travel journey for you.
Oh yeah, for sure. I first left and went to Denver for a little bit, tried that out because I always had dreams about living in Denver. I didn't really like living in Denver that much actually, but like it was just too cold, right? And not enough going on actually. I found SF to be like a way more like happening city. And so and then I tried all sorts of travel. I like traveled to like Europe for a while, went to like Lisbon and Amsterdam and London. Tried out all these cities, met all these really amazing creators out in Europe, right? And that was really sick. And that was really fun. And then I had this, this time in Utah with y'all, dude. It's been great.
Yeah, it has. It's been awesome. And so like before we get to why you're actually going back, which I'm pretty interested about, Tina, what's your story here? What I'm sure through your videos and some other things, people have learned why you left. But I'm interested in, maybe the short version, or if there's anything you want to clear up along that path.
Yeah, so I think you can think about it. Zach's version was like people were pooping on his doorstep a bit. He was like, oh, this is very bad. And then he left. So it's like very dramatic, right? And then I think mine was more just like, oh, like this is not very good. My lease ended. Like from personal reasons as well. And I quit my job. So there was no reason for me to be in the Bay Area anymore. So I was like, screw this entire continent. I'm going to go back to China. Actually, now that I think about it, that's kind of dramatic too.
I mean, yeah, you definitely traveled more. I mean,
yeah, that's pretty dramatic rage quitting as well. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna like screw. I hate this entire continent. I was just gonna leave. And then I went to China, but then I got caught in like the COVID thing that's happening. Some of you guys probably know what's happening in China. So when I first went there, I had to go through Korea and then to Xiamen to quarantine, and then finally back to Beijing, where I'm from. And then after that, it kind of just like got worse and worse. Like everything, they started locking down places. So I was also just like traveling across China, running away from the COVID police a little bit, a lot. So that happened for about 2 weeks or so. It was like 2 to 3 weeks. I was in China. I got stuck there for about 3 months, I think. And then at some point, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like this country is not for me. So then I finally managed to get myself to like Hong Kong. And then from Hong Kong, I went to Vancouver. And then when I'm in Vancouver, I also decided that I didn't like Vancouver that much. So then I came to Salt Lake City, and then I'm crawling my way back to San Francisco. Although, in my defense, I was in South Bay before, and now I'm downtown San Francisco. So I see that as a change.
Oh, that's a very big change. I mean, I lived in Mountain View like in 2016, and like I did not like Mountain View. Like I definitely after my lease was up in Mountain View, I left, and I was like, good riddance. Like I was like so happy about it. I was like, I was so relieved because like I feel the problem with Mountain View is like, so Mountain View and San Francisco, at least like in terms of rent, are about the same. I think Mountain View actually might be a little bit higher.
A little bit, yeah.
And you get so much less. You get so much less when you live in Mountain View. It's like, oh, I get to live in suburbia and maybe go to like a hot pot place once or twice, right? But it's like no nightclubs, no parties. It's just like freaking going to work at Google or Facebook and then being sad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And whereas like San Francisco, I noticed I moved there like in 2018, and it's like there's a lot of stuff. There's always like literally every day of the week, no matter what, like there's something going on, and there's always you can always go to a party. If you want to go to a party at Wednesday at 2 a.m., there's gonna be a party, right?
Is that a good thing for you guys or a bad thing for you guys?
Balance, right? Balance is important, right? I think that like the option to do that is important because then I feel free, but like I can't just say yes to everything because that was a problem. That was another big thing because it's like obviously for me there was more than just like this one thing about SF that made me leave because I had so many things I loved about SF as well. So it was like it felt very conflicting for me on like why, right? Because I thought about leaving for like 6 months. It took me like an extra 6 months from like when I thought about leaving to actually leaving because I was so like conflicted. And like I think a part of that is because there's so much going on. I have so many friends there, right? And it's just like so much happening, right? But that was a big problem for me. There was like I just didn't pace myself, right? Where I was like, yes, I'll go to all the crypto parties. Yes, I'm gonna do all the data events. Yes, I'm gonna do all of the things. And then I was like, then I realized I'm like, dude, I'm a little bit burnt out right now, dude. I'm feeling a little bit fried. Like this is a lot, right? And it's like being in that environment, like it can be really good, but it also can be a lot for sure. That's why this reset has been amazing. Like I feel so good.
Yeah, I think it's important to have these types of resets. I'm interested, Tina. You're going back this time, and you're not. Like so much of San Francisco is focused around tech culture. Mm-hmm. You're not working at like a FANG company anymore. How do you feel about like your identity in the city compared to what it was before? Is that going to be something that you've even put any thought into, or you're just going to roll with it?
I haven't really thought about it. When people ask me what I do, I say I do internet stuff, or I just say I'm unemployed instead of having to explain what I do.
Well,
so I don't know if that's like.
Well, no, I think that's really interesting. So like in cities like San Francisco, New York, or or in Washington D.C., something that I really hate is everyone leads with what do you do? That's how they evaluate status, or that's how they that's a lot of how you introduce yourself, and they decide if they want to hang out with you based on that. Oh, yeah. And that's one of my least favorite things. I purposely tell people that I'm like either unemployed or something along those lines. And I remember specifically, I was actually in Chicago at the time. We were at it's like some random karaoke bar, and I got into this conversation with this person, and they were like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just homeless. I'm unemployed. I'm doing whatever." And she's like, "Oh, at least you're honest. At least you didn't say you're an entrepreneur." And I was like, because that's what I was doing at the time. Is I had like just started a company. I was like, "Damn, dude,
got him."
But yeah, I think that there's so many different ways to get to know people, and that's also that's like honestly a weeding mechanism for me. Is if someone, if you're at a tech event, that's a little bit different. Like because where you work, that's a point of touching off. But in social settings, I prefer other questions or other ways to get to know people.
Definitely, like that like value judgment. It's like, oh, you don't work at Facebook, well then you're not part of the cool, right? Or like whatever, right? That's definitely a vibe there for sure. That's like and like I think that's like something about SF that like I've definitely noticed there. That is like it's one of the trickier parts of the culture to navigate there for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think in any culture you can sort of find your own group that that sees the world that you do in any place. It's just a matter of looking and finding. You were saying something.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, Ken, would you prefer someone went like, what is your favorite method of cooking salmon?
Probably. That'd be way more interesting.
And what would that be? Sous vide?
Well, that's a good question. Probably sous vide. I like baking salmon is pretty easy and efficient though. I usually ask, like, you know, do you have any projects you're really excited about, or you know, how do you spend your time? I think that opens the door. If the people want to talk about their work, that's fine, but it also leaves it open to be like, oh, I would be like, oh, I love jujitsu. That's what I do.
I'd go and bust out, like, I love yoga. I love sweating. I love running. Right. I love walking around with a dog.
Yeah. I also, when I introduce myself to people, I try to give them something to stick to. So I'll go a little bit more in depth into something that I'm interested in, or travel or something like that up front, so that they have something to stick a story to. Like the way I view it is you sort of doing them a favor by telling them more about yourself, because then they can find something to relate to. Rather than be like, hey, what's up? And you're like, what's up? And then you're just stalemated, you know?
Yeah, done. Yeah, and then it makes it easier to like connect with people and be remembered that way, right? And that was definitely something I've noticed about just like about SF, where it's like, dude, like, am I just married to Airbnb, right? It's like, because that's like, people always lead with, what do you do, right? And I'm always like, I know that's the thing that people are going to remember.
Zach Airbnb guy.
Yeah, Zach Airbnb. Oh, he's that Airbnb guy, right? I'm like, I guess. But like, and I think that, like, because that primacy effect of like the very first thing that you say to someone matters a lot, dude. It matters a lot for sure. And that's how, like, you can connect with people. You can be like, oh yeah, Ken the jujitsu guy, or, you know, that's why I personally like, that's why one of the reasons I like having a dog too, is that like freaking it's one of the things that like people connect with me a lot, right? I think that like that's the other kind of brand piece I got, is like, oh yeah, Zach is Lulu's dad, right? Because Lulu has a stronger brand than me, so yeah.
but you have more LinkedIn subscribers, followers than she does.
Yeah, but so far.
I think that's the move. Instead of Instagram, making Lulu a LinkedIn account.
That is something I have debated about, actually. About like, I'm like, dude, can I make a LinkedIn for my dog, dude? Like, that'd be pretty sick.
I mean, you're thinking about like big fish, small pond. Yeah. I mean, actually, big fish, very large pond, but only fish of one type.
Yeah, for sure. I'd be massive first mover advantage though, right?
Yeah.
Like, no one else is thinking about that.
I think you should. This should inspire it. I mean, honestly, if we look at things more broadly, that's very much how I view a lot of the content, a lot of career things, is how do I find opportunities that are completely differentiated, right? I mean, you know, right now, I mean, Tina's massive on YouTube. A lot of our friends are really focusing on that platform, and I think that's awesome. I still obviously care about YouTube. I enjoy making the videos, but realistically, can I necessarily make as much of a name for myself in that space? I don't personally think so. And I found that for podcasting, doing this, talking to my friends, is something I enjoy arguably more than making normal content. So it's like, oh, how many podcasts are there compared to data YouTube people? Significantly less. What's the upfront cost of creating a podcast compared to creating a YouTube channel? I think it's higher, because in theory, for most people, they believe they have to make more content. Whereas, it's about finding these opportunities for yourself to, just create your own brand, create your own style that is fundamentally different from other people. And I like that. I like how Lulu can be a part of that.
Oh yeah. So those like intersectional skills, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, like, if you're good at data, great. But if you're like good at data and video, you're rare. And then it's like, if you're good at data and video and talking to people, you're like a unicorn, right?
Yeah. Well,
for sure.
I recently released the course that I wish I had when I was starting out in the data science domain. It's called The Machine Learning Process from A to Z, and I partnered with 365 Data Science to build this. I also worked with my good friend, Jeff Lee, who's one of the most impressive data scientists I know, to get all of the implementation correct. This course is special for a couple reasons. So first, it focuses on the machine learning process. So you go from ideation to data collection to exploratory data analysis, all of the steps to building and implementing a data science project. It's all taken care of for you. We don't focus as much on the algorithms. This is all about getting a project out the door. Next, we've also open sourced all of our code and all of our examples on GitHub and Kaggle. Those are very easily accessible to everyone, including those people who just maybe want to see those and don't want to pay for the full course. In addition to that, we've included all of the resources that we use to build the course, so you're getting multiple different perspectives on every single concept rather than just our singular voice. I view this course as one of the most valuable things that I put into the world, and I'm excited to hear what you think of it. I've included a discount link in the description for the YouTube video, as well as in the descriptions on all the other podcast platforms. We were talking a little bit before. I think, Tina, you'd mentioned that we all kind of have a good first mover advantage. We already have brands that we've created, and those just compound over time, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think it's too late for anyone to get on any of these platforms, but getting on them now and producing content or creating a story or creating a brand for yourself now, like, you should be doing this as soon as possible, because the less, the later you get on, the later you start producing anything, inevitably, like, you're falling behind, or you don't have that opportunity to create momentum. And
there's more competition, because there's going to be more and more people are going to recognize the value of this. I think especially as like the kind of the house of cards around traditional employment continues to fall, right? Because it's like you see all these things around like the layoffs at Google, the layoffs at Amazon, all like, they all laid off essentially, right? And it's like, okay, what about these people? Like, what % of these people are like, oh yeah, dude, I got laid off at Amazon, I'm gonna go work at freaking another big tech company or whatever. Like, some of them are gonna do that, but like a lot of the tech companies aren't even hiring right now, right? So that these people have like this time, these very talented people have this time to like compete, right? To like go do content full time if they want, right? And it's like, I think that renaissance is going to kind of really create like that kind of personal brand sort of stuff. Is like, there's going to be more and more people out there who are like really finding their voice and understanding themselves, and then kind of selling their services as like contractors, right? And selling their services as like, individuals, because they recognize that one, like, I know, like, when I've been working in big tech, like when I've worked at Netflix, I've worked at Airbnb, I've saved both those companies like, like tens of millions of dollars, right? And it's like, they did not pay me that much money, right? Obviously. And so like, I think that like there's one part of it that's like as an engineer, the upside that you get to capture if you work for yourself versus the upside that you get to capture if you work for a company, very different, right? Very different. And you can, you get a bigger chunk of the profit sharing, right? Essentially, if you are working by yourself, because you have more leverage in that situation. You're not just like, hey, I'm just one engineer of like 10,000 engineers at Facebook, and like I'm just a cog in the machine, right? And then these companies have billions of dollars, so it's like I just get whatever they're gonna give me, right? It's like no negotiation really, right? So like it's tricky.
Well, there's actually, I think, another side to that. If you are still planning to stick with more traditional employment, is that I'd have to look at the data because I have no concept of this, but I would imagine companies would be less inclined to lay someone off that has a relatively strong brand and a large audience.
Oh yeah,
that's an increased liability for them.
Yeah,
especially if they're a thought leader in the community. Like, what does it say about a big tech company that lays off a thought leader, right? I mean, to me, that's very interesting.
Yeah, and it's like, and always having that like that audience of like being able to, and that voice and that reach, right? Where it's like your words are gonna like no matter what you write, there's gonna be at least tens of thousands of people that are gonna see it, right? Even if it bombs, right? That's like the floor. That's like if it's your worst piece of content, 10,000 people see it, right? And then it's like, wow, okay. And then the upside is like millions, right? Yep. And so definitely. I think it's interesting though, because I think these big tech companies are gonna like have this interesting kind of balance to walk, right? Because on one side they want these people, right? They want like because I've even noticed this at Airbnb, like when Airbnb will hire people, then these people will ping me on Slack and they're like, oh yeah, I joined Airbnb because I love your content, Zach. And I'm like, that's crazy. Right? And I know that like that kind of personal branding and like kind of is going to be like a recruitment machine. I've definitely seen it for other like, big influencers on LinkedIn. And it's like, okay, but like, it's also a personal brand. It's like I'm not an extension of Airbnb. I'm myself, right? Yeah. And so there's always that kind of line where like different companies have different perspectives on that, where some companies police influencers a lot more, and they kind of say, oh, you can or cannot say that. I've been very grateful at Airbnb. Like literally, I've I've had 0 conversations with PR like in my 2 years there, and like that's been amazing because it's like I know that those conversations would have been really annoying, and like and I'm glad that like they haven't, even though like I feel like I've even said things that like I don't know, like when I posted it, I'm like, oh, is this gonna be it? Is this gonna be the one where because I'm like, okay, how close to the edge can I get before Airbnb PR gets involved, right? Yeah. I figured they would give me one. They would give me one, right? They give me like one strike, at least one strike. They're not gonna fire me on the spot for one post, right? So, but like never. It's been great.
I think that's a consideration that's relevant when you're choosing a company. I also saw like creators leaving as like early writing on the wall for a lot of companies. Like for example, like Tina, you left Meta. It was last year, right? In March of last year. At the same time, Ben Rogajan left. Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 people that I know
and
left.
Daliana left too.
Tyler Richards, who I've had on the podcast, left for other things. And it's like, if these people who are, I'm going to for advice or thoughts or whatever it is, they're leaving, it doesn't necessarily mean the company's in distress, but it means that like,
it's a signal. It's definitely a data point, right? Well, and especially when it's like a cluster like that of all these like really talented, high profile people all going like within like 3 or 4 months of each other, right? Yeah. For sure. I mean, I even felt the same like back then, like last like Q1, like March, April, like that was the same time during like the Great Resignation, right? That's like, and during that time, like I definitely, there was a strong pull. I had a strong pull where I was definitely like, ooh, am I going to join this, dude? Am I going to jump? Yeah.
I mean,
like, for sure.
So obviously there was the mass layoffs. Tina, I'm interested in your perspective on sort of where you think employment is going. I mean, obviously you're someone who has left to build your own thing. Zach, you've obviously contemplated it from what you just said.
Oh yeah.
Like, do we see tech companies having less of an influence, like it being less of an aspirational thing? Or is it just like, hey, layoffs, they still pay all this money and we're just going to go back to business as usual?
Yeah. So I still have quite a lot of friends in the tech industry and just working for these big companies as well. I really think if people were not cognizant previously, now they are very cognizant of the fact that you cannot let a tech company define your identity. That is not who you are. Exactly what Zach was saying as well. So it's very important. I always say like, you don't really choose a career. You have to craft your own career. And what that means, like, me personally, I really admire people who can just be okay potentially being starving artists or like not having a certain quality of life. I cannot do that. I like my luxuries, if you like. So I would go for that full-time job. I would get that experience, but what I did was I built stuff on the side because I knew that didn't define my identity. And for a while, my identity was defined by working at Meta, but also doing different things on the side. And then slowly I crafted that towards what I consider to be a career right now that I really love. And I think people are starting to also move in that direction as the barrier of entry to getting other sources of income, other parts of their career starts opening up. So if people haven't realized this already, I do think it's important to think about that. Like, how do you, instead of depending on external sources to fulfill yourself, how do you fulfill yourself by yourself using the resources around you?
Yeah, I what I really like about that is you're like, instead of these big tech companies necessarily using you, because that's what they do, right? Your employees, they pay you money, they don't have any loyalty to you. It's like you are, in some sense, like very expensive, highly trained cogs in our machine. And on the other side of that, what you're saying is you're effectively using these big tech companies to enable your lifestyle, to enable something for you to build on the side or to give you more autonomy, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I've definitely felt very grateful about that, about like the position that like, because I definitely fell into that identity trap, like especially when I worked at Netflix, where I just let it consume me. It was like, it was it. That was my end all be all, dude, of just like working at that company, right? And like that was a lot, right? And like there was definitely times there where like I was like, it felt very precarious, right? Where I was like, uh-oh, because it was like essentially if like work was stressful, like my entire life was stressful, right? And it was like when work was good, my entire life was good, but it was just like this like crazy like seesaw effect that I was getting, right? But on the other side, like I also recognize it's like, yeah, they also paid me very well, right? And that like I can now make, investment decisions. I can invest in startups. I can like, take some risky bets, right? And try different things out like that, and like really build something on my own too, right? Because it's like I have the the initial capital to do that now, and I don't even have to like go through YC or whatever if I don't want to, right? And so for sure, there's like it opens up the door as well to like other things, right? Especially like if you don't want to like take investor money. That's like definitely something I've noticed about working in big tech that has been really good. Like it's definitely a trade-off though, for sure.
Yeah, I think I indexed the opposite direction where I didn't go as like capital intensive early on. And I don't know if it necessarily bit me, but I definitely see the drawbacks of like, oh, I have to consider like finances for an opportunity, or I have to think about that. Or I mean, I just have like a bunch of student loan debt still.
Yeah.
I mean, fortunately now I think like very competitive money with the tech space through content and my normal job.
Yeah.
But if I inverted that and I was like, wow, I was making so much money, let's say when I was 25, 26, I'm 33 now. There's a very different opportunity set from a pure financial perspective that I have access to, right? If it's like, oh, I want to invest 10 grand in a company, like I still have to think about that decision now, right?
Yeah.
If I had laid the groundwork for, like upfront capital intensive, or like capital, not intensive, like high capital opportunities, those things compound over time, just like us creating a brain compounds over time. And I don't think it's necessarily worth it to, or it might be for some people to like in some sense sell your soul, work at like a Citadel or something like that. But you have to evaluate your own personal aptitude for that. I also realized early on I would have like worked at one of those companies for like 3 weeks and been like,
I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that happened a lot, especially at Netflix, right? There was definitely a lot of times where like a lot of my coworkers, they were there for 3 months or 6 months, and then they were out, dude. They were like, I
just like Lulu wants to be.
Lulu, are you out, dog? Go ahead. Oh, she's just gonna lay down here. Okay, go ahead. Okay. So whatever, dog.
What you doing, Lulu? Oh, there she is.
Okay, she's out for real.
she gone. Just looking for snacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think that one of the things that like is about that, like I think that was definitely when I was like thinking about like how I was going to plan my life when I was like really young, when I was like 18, 19, 20, and I was like trying to figure out like where to go to school and everything. That was like one of the things that I was like really hesitant about, right? It was like I want to go somewhere where I don't have to take any debt at all, right? Because debt was like very debt phobic. Like, I mean, looking back on it now, I actually think that like that was like almost, it was too much, right? Where like I probably could have had better opportunities had I just like, taken on some debt there. And but like in another vein though, I also feel very grateful to just be like, well, okay, yeah, I don't got any debt, right? So at least that, right? So I have like more options in that regard, but like it's definitely a trade-off, right? Where it's like, because you have those opportunities that you can invest in, right? Especially early on, where it's like if you can get those skills early on, then like you can be in an amazing situation, right?
So I read something. I think Tina, you might have showed this to me. It might not have been you, but one of the like leading factors of like stress and like precursors to a lot of mental illness is financial stress. So essentially being in debt, worrying about living from paycheck to paycheck, those types of things, that compounds across your entire life. So if you're thinking about, oh, I owe X amount of money, how am I going to pay it? Am I going to be able to pay this month? Am I going to go even more debt or whatever it might be? That is, it makes everything else in your life work suboptimally. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, especially as a student. You're like, oh, it's fine. I'll make a ton of money after I land this job, whatever it is. And then you're like, oh, I have to spend an extra, like, I think I pay $1,700 or something dollars a month to pay my student loan debt.
Yeah.
I think that's really high because I did 2 graduate degrees and I was not super wise about that. But, even like an extra $1,000 a month living in a city like San Francisco, living in a city like, it's absurd.
That's a lot, dude. I mean, like, that's like way more than like a car, right? It's like, it's like essentially owning 2 cars, dude.
It's literally like renting Like a Porsche, probably.
Yeah, renting it. You can
like leasing a Porsche for
renting a Porsche every
month. I could
month.
be balling, guys.
Yeah, big balling, dude. I mean,
just go to Canada, guys.
Go to Canada.
Do your undergrad in Canada. Yeah. You still end up in those big tech companies.
Yeah, dude.
You just pay a lot less.
All those people. There was so many people at Facebook that went to Waterloo, dude. Waterloo is UFT,
UBC. Yeah. So any international students out there, if you are considering going to the States, do consider Canada as well. It's not as cool seeming, but in terms of money wise, be saving a lot, and you do end up in the same places.
Yeah. Because it's like if you can save 100, because if you think about it, if you can save 100K by the time you're 25, and you can essentially invest that 100K instead, and you don't invest anything else for the rest of your life, right? That's like, I think that's like $3 or $4 million when you retire. Yep. So like it's kind of crazy. Like yeah, for sure, the student debt is a crazy thing that like.
Yeah, and it's the only thing you can, at least in the U.S., you can't file bankruptcy for.
Yeah.
So,
really?
You're like screwed.
It for life,
it's yours.
I actually did know there were a few people at UFT that were American and chose to go to Canada because it was just so much cheaper to go there. So that was interesting.
I think if I had to redo it, I would have chosen. Well, I don't know. The options at the time when I did my master's degrees were not as good as they are now. Mm-hmm. And so I don't actually know what I would have done differently. I also don't think I would have changed my path just because I genuinely like how things turned out. But at the same time, there's always that idea of like, would I recommend other people do the same approach and same thing I did? Almost definitely not.
So yeah, Ken, like, what prompted you to do a second degree? Like, I mean, for me, like after I finished my bachelor's, like. I was so burnt out. I was so done with school. like thinking about even doing one graduate degree, I was like, I don't know about that. But then doing two, that's impressive, man.
So my approach was when you don't know what to do, go back to school and buy time to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And I think that was an expensive way to do it. I think it worked well for me. I don't recommend that. I think people can figure out what they want to do while they're working at a job. But that was essentially the approach that I took. So my first degree was in global business. So after college, I tried to play golf professionally. And obviously it didn't work out too well. I had fun, but I had no tangible skills, right? Yeah. And so after that, I went back and I did my master's in like global commerce, essentially. And so what that was is at a target school, University of Virginia. Mm-hmm. And so that was my ticket into doing management consulting, because I viewed consulting as essentially the most open-ended career that would give me the largest exit opportunity set.
Oh yeah.
And then I hated it. And then I started,
One second, I need to get water.
No problem. And then one of my, I'll keep going. Zach in here, I think. Yeah. And then one of my, a couple of my friends and I, we started this company, Scouts Consulting Group. And I needed the technical skills to be able to do that effectively, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, you know what? Go back, do a master's in computer science. And I started working at Scouts full-time since then. I took essentially a year stint off and worked in industry. I also did a couple internships in like more traditional industry as well. But I was able to sort of create this, create a set. And I also enjoy learning. I actually love school. And I found out that I was quite good at school. So I was like, why not? Credibility wise, additional degrees, they do help in a small way, right? Mm-hmm. But in terms of pure job market wise, I don't think that it's quite that valuable.
Well, I think like the way that you were able to run a well-oiled machine and business stuff, right, and be able to like kind of lead all of that, like I'm sure pieces of that like were from the degree. Would you think so? Or
yeah, I think some of that is like time management. And like prioritization is valuable. I also was able to, especially when I was learning computer science, able to essentially like hyper focus onto something and pick things up like relatively quickly.
Oh yeah, the whole learning how to learn thing, right? And it's exactly. Like if you did like you essentially did a PhD, man. If you got 2 masters and an undergrad, then that's like that's a lot of school, right? Well, you honed in on like learning how to learn,
Yeah, you definitely can't call me doctor though.
Yeah, no Dr. G here.
No, not yet.
That's your dad.
Yeah, that is my dad. That is what I say. Realistically, I reach all my career goals. I make a ton of money. I have successful kids, and they're doing great. I would 100% go back to school just to like learn.
My dad did that. Like he went back to school at like I think like 57.
That's sick.
Yeah, dude. And I was like, wow, dude, that's so. And he wanted to like learn how to code. Like he went back for computer science.
That's dope.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
I'm very much the opposite of you. I really hate school.
Yeah.
You done?
Oh no, I'm done. Like even in school, I never went to class because I would just fall asleep anyway. So I just didn't go instead.
I'm not surprised.
I was the same way. Like where like I remember like I had this class combinatorics, right, which is like my final semester of school. Like I had this class combinatorics. I did great. I was sitting at like a 99% in the class, but I never went. I think it was 2 days a week, and I think I went twice the whole semester, right? And like for the final though, right? He said that like I didn't turn in half of the final, and the final was half the grade. So I went from a 99% to like a 75% because I got like a 50% on the final, right? And I was like, "Ow, dude!" That was like, and it was like C. And I'm like, "Ow, dude!" That was like it hurt because I was like, it felt like, and then when I went to talk with him, he was like. He didn't like me because I didn't go to class, right? And
Fair enough.
He was like, nah, I'm not gonna give you any slack here, Zach. Like, take your C or leave it, right? And then I was like, okay, so I'm taking the C, dude. And it was just enough to graduate, though. Yeah. So,
well, you guys both have a very interesting philosophy on college, which I think we should dive into. So, Zach, something that you told me is. Oh, well, first of all, you graduated in like an absurd record amount of time, correct?
Yeah, for sure.
But you also, if I remember correctly, described that you were shooting for essentially like a 3.5 or something like that.
For sure.
Because if you got higher than that, it meant that you weren't taking on enough class
I wasn't absorbing enough information, right? Because it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, okay, would you rather do like a set 20 push-ups with perfect form, or would you rather do 30 push-ups and push yourself, right? And like, or as many push-ups as you can until failure, right? Where it's like, which way do you grow more, right? It's like, well, having perfect form does help, right? And like getting straight A's like is definitely one way to go, right? But it's like, are you going to grow faster? Are you going to get bigger that way? Or are you going to get bigger by doing more push-ups and trying to, and maybe sacrificing a little bit of form just for more reps, right? And I think for me, that was one of the big things I was doing where it was like I was always taking like 20 credits, like 20 to 24 credits. That was like my, like every semester. That was just like my, like, the way I did it, right? And because that was the thing, is like I was able to graduate pretty quickly, but I also changed my major so many times. Like I took like 4 or 5 chemistry classes. I freaking took a bunch of genetics classes. I took because I was pre-med for a little bit, chemical engineering for a bit. Like I was also dabbled like in pharmacology a little bit too, and like it's a lot of different like classes that I took to just kind of discover myself, because like I realized that like if you change majors, because the average student changes majors 4 times, right? And like, but if you change majors and you're only taking 12 credits a semester, that change is very expensive in terms of time, right? Because then it's like, oh, instead of it costing 1 semester, it costs 3 semesters. Because also sometimes like the classes don't line up where you have to do A then B, and then it like makes it so that like the only way that you can do both of those classes is you have to wait a year. Right. And there's like a lot of things like that you got to like consider. And I think for me, that was the big thing where I was like, I need to discover myself. I need to figure out what I want to do. And the best way to do that is to take as many classes as possible. Right. And then I was like, A's don't really matter that much. Right.
Well, I think it's important you found that out early. Like it seems like it seems weird, but I think you approached school in the correct way. Right. Where your focus was on learning and getting the most out of it. I did it the wrong way. I am just hyper competitive, and I was like, screw everyone else. I'm gonna get the best grades in all the classes. I'm gonna break all the curves.
Yeah.
I don't care if these other people like me, but I mean, I obviously learned a lot, but it wasn't for my own personal development. It was for some like weird ego thing.
Yeah, like competitiveness, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't that I was like bragging to everyone that I was getting good grades.
Yeah, but you wanted to feel that though of just like, dude, perfection, right? There's like kind of that perfectionistic kind of attitude of like, dude, I destroyed this class.
But that's not what the real world is like, right? Yeah, the real world is
they don't care.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we have to get this done by this point in time, and it probably can't be perfect, because if it's perfect, you spent too much time on it. And Tina, I feel like you also have a pretty interesting philosophy about this, where it's like, you know, you need to get you want to minimize the amount of effort, right? But maximize the outcome. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I didn't know about Zach's philosophy, but it makes a lot of sense now since I know you as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I was pre-med as well, pharmacology. So the grades did matter a lot. Like my first semester, I got a 2.9 GPA, and then I was like, oh no, I better not do that. So then I averaged a 4.0 for like the next couple of years or so. Like, and then it was like a 3.9, something like that. So it was like I did get really, really good grades because I thought I wanted to go to med school. But it was almost out of necessity because I've always been like this ever since high school, in which I just don't go to class because I just like can't focus. Like I just sit there, fall asleep, then I get yelled at for falling asleep in class. And then so I kind of more developed a method in which I can get the grades that I need, but do it with the least amount of effort, and then go do other stuff that I wanted on the side as well. Yeah. So for example, when I was doing pharmacology, what I would do is I would take a recorder, stick it at the podium where the professor was, and then just leave, or like ask one of my friends to do that, and then I would like not go to any of the classes until except like to put my recorder down. And then usually it's like midterms and exams, right? So that it would be like 2 or 3 days before then I would speed listen to the entire semester. And then that's how and I had like a method of doing things such that I only have to go through the content twice. So first time is when I listen to it, and the second time is I look at it, I go through it one more time. Like I have these techniques that I developed such that I only have to review it like that, and then I would be able to get really good on the exams. Mm-hmm. To be fair, I did like forget everything afterwards. So it was not the best method in terms of retention, but I did get what I want from that. And then the rest of the semester, I just did like whatever I wanted, right?
Yeah, I think it's really funny. The three of us have fundamentally different approaches to almost everything. For example, like, you know, Zach was hyper optimized on learning, right? Mm-hmm. I was like partially like half and half optimized for learning and grade success, and you were exclusively optimized for
pretending
for grade success while minimizing learning in the same time.
I mean, that putting a recorder down like that sounds a lot like some like Hermione Granger thing, right? Because it's like where like because you know she has like the time turner where it's like, but if you just go in and you put a recorder in like 3 different classrooms, it's like you can take classes like in parallel. There's like parallel processing of like class information there, and that's really cool. Like that's like really fancy.
And then 3 times the speed when you listen to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then it's just like
that literally is time travel. Like
I kind of think that points to a massive fundamental flaw in education and how it's done. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think I'm probably most suited for education the way that it's designed. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I am not normal. Yeah. Right? I'm not normal. I mean, to me, like, it takes like a very specific type of person to excel in academia. And the problem is that I am like essentially the average student, right? I don't think I'm overwhelmingly bright. I work relatively hard. But what happens is the material is matching my learning pace. And so as like sort of the middle of the bell curve, I get all the benefit. And then the majority of people who are not right in the middle of the bell curve, they're either unbelievably bored because it's moving too slow, or they're just like completely out of their depth because it's moving too fast.
And it's like overwhelming, right? Yeah. And like when I was, because when I was in college, I worked as a math tutor for like a little bit. I was like 18 months or so. And like, I definitely experienced that where it was weird because the people who actually show up for tutoring are the people who are on both sides of that. Actually, like you have the people who are like coming to learn like about it in like a deeper way, right? And those are the people who are maybe like wanting to learn quicker and faster and stuff like that. And then they show up for tutoring. And then you also have the people who are like struggling. The people who like, most people think the most people who go to tutoring are the people who are behind, right? But like in my experience, it was like those were the majority, like maybe like 60%, but it was like 60-40, where like 40% of the people were actually like really bright and like really excited to learn, and it was great because I love teaching them because I was like, yeah, dude, you get it, you understand, like those are the people who had my vibes, right? For sure.
Yeah, No, well, you know, I'm a big fan of online learning and those types of things now because you can do it at your own pace. There's a lot of benefits.
Yeah.
I think, you know, you were talking about watching things in 3x speed. When I was doing my master's in computer science, I started going in person, and then after the first essentially like 2 quarters, I stopped because I could watch all of the lectures online and I could watch them at 2x speed, and I didn't have to go. It was like 5 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Oh, that's
at night.
not a good time.
No, I'm you know me, I'm useless after 5 p.m. unless I'm playing Catan.
Yeah. Then he's a beast.
Yeah, there's been no mercy on that front in this household. You know, obviously, so I think we've all lived together for about a month. I'm interested in your guys, if your perspectives on everyone else has changed over the course of this experience.
Well, I think with you, not so much because we've known each other for like 3 years now, and we also have a business together.
Yeah, we talk a lot.
Yeah.
So
It's just like you're a lot meaner.
I'm so nice. Don't
So many
come on
dad
my
jokes.
podcast. And no, I'm just kidding.
Made me cry every day, but you know.
You were gonna cry every day anyway.
Zach, though, so I didn't actually know Zach that well. I knew of him, and I met him one time previously. So I didn't really know him at all. I know he did like LinkedIn stuff. I heard that you were a character. That's what I heard, but I didn't know like what kind of character you were.
Oh yeah.
So it has been really cool, like getting to know you. I consider you one of my closest friends at this point. Aww. Yeah. So it's like I got to go know Zach a lot. Like it's he like I think you have a certain persona on the internet, which is really amazing. But there's actually so many aspects of you that is so much more than your persona. It's like some guy working at Airbnb who has LinkedIn and is really big on LinkedIn. You're so much more than that.
For sure. That's like, I mean, a lot of times when I do these like when I've done like the coffee walks with people and everything, they're always like, Zach, like, you're a lot cooler in person. And I'm like, I'm like, yeah, I guess I need to step it up, dude. I need to figure out how to like incorporate some of this other energy into the brand. Right?
Yeah, I didn't expect that. I didn't know you were so energetic as a person, right? And then also you're very self-aware as a person as well. Yeah, and that's something that I didn't realize too. So yeah, like I felt like I really got to know Zach. There were a couple other people that kind of dropped in and out and got to know them as well, which is really cool. I think for me personally, I have a tendency of hiding in my room by myself and not talk to anyone for long periods of time. So by being in this environment, it really forced me out of my shell. It disrupted my routine, which in this situation has been really good for me because it pushed me towards doing things that I would maybe not have done. Zach would always say, Tina, your vision is too short.
Yes.
Don't you want to build an excellent product? And I'm just
come on, Tina.
just like, no. But you know, I'm like, you know, you make a very good point, Zach. So yeah, I do feel like since Zach and I are also going to be sharing Airbnb when we're in San Francisco, I think I'm going to be learning a lot as well.
It's going to be awesome. Oh yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, I've learned a lot about both y'all. It's been great. Like, I think with Ken, one of the things I learned more about you is that like, I learned that just like, you're just like so based, dude. Like you're very like I just feel that like actually like shaking you. I only saw it once, Ken. I saw it once on the whole trip, and it was when you were experiencing pizza disappointment. All right, that was it.
Okay,
that was
so
the only time.
A little bit of background. I'd wanted to go to this pizza place since like the third day we were here. We drove past it. They have Detroit style pizza, which is one of my favorite types of pizza that I cannot get in Hawaii really. And we go one night at around 8 p.m. like it's towards the end. It was like last week, right? And they were out of pizza, so we ate some garlic knots, and the garlic knots were made with the pizza dough and they were really good, but we literally could not get pizza. And we went back by last night and they were still out of pizza, and then I called today and they were also out of pizza. and so frankly, like, screw this place.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to make the Detroit style pizza on my own at home. Oh, you guys can come over.
Oh yeah,
But
for sure.
Hawaii. Yeah, I wasn't even mad. I was just like so disappointed in them.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw like the disappointment in your eyes, Ken. It like sunk in, dude. And I was like, I think that's the first time I've seen you shook, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
You would be a scary father.
Just always disappointed.
Yeah, dude, it'd be like, oh yeah, dude, like, you know, have that Asian dad vibe, dude. Like, yeah, I've never been.
Yeah.
No, Asian dads get mad though.
Yeah, they get mad.
Yeah.
They do. It's like the stoic disappointment.
Yeah.
It like shakes my core.
Yeah,
every
sure.
time.
It's like, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah.
Well, it's very interesting. I like don't have anger and as part of my system anymore. I just don't see value in it, and I probably should. I think anger is really good for compelling you to do things, but it's an energy that's very difficult to control. And I honestly can't remember the last time I was angry. Like maybe when I was in like college, like freaking. No, it was probably later than that. I just can't think of it right now. Yeah. It was probably something really stupid. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I think that I learned a lot about you, Ken. I also learned that like you have the discipline to like. Also, you're just like a very disciplined person as well. Like just the number of times that you went to jiu-jitsu in this month, impressive, very impressive. And I tried jiu-jitsu. You even got me to try jiu-jitsu, dude. It was freaking sick, fun. Dude. Like I loved it, dude. It was awesome.
We'll get Tina to next time.
Yeah, Tina, you definitely. Yeah, Tina.
You can go with Nicole.
On the mat, dude. Like let's go in SF. It's right next to the hot yoga place, literally next door.
You can go one into the other.
Yeah, dude, we can do both hot yoga into jiu-jitsu, so it's like sweat on sweat on sweat, dude.
I don't like sweat.
No shower in between.
I don't like sweating. I don't like other people's sweat. I don't like it when people touch me. Yeah. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds perfect.
And I think for you, Tina, I learned a lot about you. I learned that like you are like a very, very creative person. That you have like this really like galaxy brain mind, which is like it's awesome. Like it's great. Like because like there's it goes to all sorts of random tangents and stuff sometimes too, which is really great. Like yeah, for sure. And like just like being able to like go on walks and like hang out and like freeze and like be like get the dog out, walking with her and you. It's freaking good stuff, dude. Definitely.
Yep, you're doing a lot of that in San Francisco.
Oh yeah, tons. Yeah, that's the city of walking, dude. So yeah. For sure.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll have to come visit you guys. Unfortunately, I have a bunch of work travel and I won't be able to join you. But I'm super excited that this has spawned a new roommatehood.
Yeah, for sure.
It seems like if anything positive came out of the trip, that is at least one of them.
Oh yeah, it's major.
Yeah, I think from my perspective. I mean, obviously, Tina, we've known each other a long time. I'm trying to think. I learned that you have very interesting perspectives on dentists. That was one thing. I'm trying to think. I mean, there's obviously a lot of positive things. I think that you have so many unique techniques to get yourself to do things. It's like pretty powerful. It's fascinating to see these systems. Whereas I'm like, I'll just use willpower today.
Yeah.
Tina's like, no, I will never use willpower. I will make this strange system of pulleys and levers and people to compel me to do things. And it works. It like works really well for you.
Yes, because have you realized that I may appear to be kind of ordered and structured, but in fact I am chaos. I just have to like organize my chaos using such techniques.
I agree. I think that the biggest thing that I noticed was just how different we all are. Like Zach, you're so full of energy and you're also like, not in a bad way, you're like chaotic. Oh, yeah. Like you're like, it's exciting to be around you. And I'm the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Where it's I have no volatility during the day. And Zach is like,
it's like, hey, let's go.
But for me, it's exciting to observe that. I don't get to be around enough people that are fundamentally like different, and it also like worked well. It's not like we weren't compatible, right? It wasn't like we couldn't have good conversations or we couldn't do things together. It was it was like the energy really balanced itself out. And I like that a lot. I think it's something I've grown increasingly excited on, is just spending time with people that are fundamentally different than me. I've also realized that there aren't a lot of people that I feel like are super like me. Like Tina, you and I are very alike when it comes to business and our like philosophy in terms of logic, aside from dentistry. I think Zach, you're also quite logical in a lot of your process.
Oh, yeah, dude. We got that like the swole discipline vibes that are similar to
Yeah, dude. Zach, for those that don't know, Zach is an elite long distance runner.
Yeah.
He was crushing like half marathons every other day.
Yeah, dude. Murdering it. It's been great.
It's pretty impressive. I mean, another way where we're fundamentally different is I'm like the opposite of an endurance athlete.
Yeah.
Like clearly a power focused athlete, and you're an endurance athlete. But I think the broader thing, the exciting thing, and the coolest thing is that I think the fact that we are all so different means that we can learn really cool things from each other. We get to have a different experience set. We get to see how different like the world could be, and how a change in philosophy or a change in just the people you're around is a positive thing. Like, Zach, you encouraged me to like whenever I was like, hey, maybe I should do something, I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm not way to a fault, dude.
Yeah. I was like, does Zach really want to do this? Or
just saying yes, dude.
Yeah,
just agreeing, dude.
Yeah.
Agree.
Zach is very agreeable.
Gotta send it, dude. That's always it's very important.
Quite agreeable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we're all like a little bit agreeable. Like,
I'm not agreeable. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, you're right.
I'm really not
You're
agreeable.
I'm the
very
fundamental
open.
opposite.
I'm like
Yeah.
I'm very open to things. But I'm not agreeable. I'll be like, no.
Yeah. Well, I think that from our business perspective, I think that's helpful. Like really, really helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
being too agreeable is bad. I mean, it can put you in situations where you have no energy for anything because you've said yes to too much, right? And like, and that like you're just like not optimizing, right? And that can be an issue for sure.
Hell yeah. So what are you guys looking forward to most when you do go back to San Francisco? You'd mentioned the freedom to do things. Is it?
Oh yeah. I mean, the warm is going to be great. I mean, I think for me, it's like a couple things. I think one is I want to really, I took for granted the community that I had been building out there a little bit, right? I felt because I felt like I was like, oh, I got this big following on LinkedIn. I can just go and build this community anywhere I want, right? And then I tried, right? I honestly tried to do it in Denver, tried to do it in a couple cities, right? And I'm like, oh wow, there's actually like, it takes time, right? It's something that like you have to like really invest in, right? And I think for me, one of the things is just like jumping back into that community and like hanging out with people and doing events. Like we're gonna do a really awesome event like probably near the end of February. It's gonna be great about like the intersection of like layoffs and content and AI and the future of work, right? It's gonna be a really awesome one. Planning that out. I think that's a big thing. I think the other big thing for me is like just like getting into the city. I mean, I love the lattes. I mean, they're so expensive.
Yes, Zach loves lattes.
And they never, it's like freaking, and like, I know every time I buy them, I'm like, I will never financially recover from this because they're like $7 or whatever. But then I'm like, but it's so good.
The way to Zach's heart is through a latte. So any ladies out there looking,
there you go,
or anyone out there for Zach, like feel free to pick
just
them.
Send me a latte gift card, dude, and just not Starbucks, somewhere else though.
It's got to be artisanal.
Yeah, dude, for sure. Artisanal lattes, dude. It's got to have like one of them little hearts and like a latte art. Dude, if there's no latte foam art and it's just like a mix of milk and like foamy milk
and love,
and like they didn't like make the art piece of it, that's not good enough for me.
Yeah.
My lattes need to be made with love, all right? Like
What about you, Tina?
I don't know if I can beat that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really looking forward to just being part of a community. When I was in Mountain View, I genuinely just sat there by myself essentially for an entire year because it was fully I just sat there by myself because it was all fully work from home, so I didn't actually know anybody. my world became so small, at least from like a internal, as like IRL perspective. Like there's people I talk to on the internet, but it's quite different. So definitely going back, now going to downtown, I'm going to make a huge effort to actually not sit there by myself, which I think, you know, just by being near Zach, that I think is near impossible.
It's going to be impossible,
to do that. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. Getting myself outside of my comfort zone, in that sense.
You're gonna be so tired after a month, but it'll be so worth it.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be
so many events.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so great.
It's gonna be and then I might just like, I'm like both terrified and looking forward to it at the same time.
Oh yeah.
Are we gonna go to a club? I don't want to go to a club.
One time.
One time.
Well, you can, if you're in San Francisco, definitely be sure to give Zach and Tina a shout. You'll probably see them at the clubs.
Yeah, we're gonna be dancing at the
every day.
If you see a crazy man dancing like a crazy person, that's me.
Yeah, you can find some video footage of Zach dancing on the internet without a doubt.
Yeah, that'll be very important.
All right, amazing guys. I think that's any final thoughts? Anything you'd like everyone to know?
Lulu is a good girl. So
she is a good girl.
Even though she's been like in and out of this podcast, she's back. All right, and she's saying hi.
Oh.
What, Lulu? You got any words?
Just no, get off me.
She's like, nah, I just want to cuddle.
No words.
You got any words, Tina?
I have nothing to say.
Boom.
Alas.
That's probably something else. I've been trying to keep it in for the past few weeks. I just like really like having full conversations with myself in yay old English.
Yeah. We'll be sitting there working quietly and we'll just hear, alas. Like, are you talking to us, Tina? No, I was talking to myself.
It's a good word.
Yeah.
For sure.
Intense. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming on. Thanks for putting up with me for a month. Thanks for helping me to learn and grow. So until next time when you guys visit.
Until next time.
Yeah, until next Creator House. Let's go.
Bye.